Each of us have been at this for more than 20 years, and we're tired. Tired of hearing people think that they have no hope, no future, and that they will simply sit in their cubicles and survive working in IT. Well, we're here to tell you right here, right now, that you can thrive in IT, and we are going to prove it.
Bringing you great stories
About great people in information technology
that it turns out are just like you. Welcome to THRIVEcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to another THRIVEcast. My name is DJ Eshelman, your host, and maybe not with the most, but I am definitely a host, so there's that. Welcome. It's been a great week. Welcome to all of you that are tuning in live, and if you're not tuning in live and you're watching the replay, we've got a great show for you today, and I'm really thankful for your attention, and hopefully you get something great out of this, because we're not just talking tech. That's not just another webinar here for you. This is another opportunity for us to learn about, a great person in IT and their background, and more about them as a person. And I think that's really important for us to know. And so that's why we do this. That's why you're here at THRIVEcast, and we hope you're enjoying it. So let's bring on my co-host, Jeff Pitch. Hey, Jeff.
So if you're the host with the most, am I the co-host with the co-most? I don't know.
I'm trying to think of names, things that rhyme with host and most, and I'm failing.
You're the songwriter, right? I mean, so it's...
You'd think. That's why I'm a failed songwriter. That's why I'm here in Nashville, and I don't write songs for a living. That's
good times.
Yeah, dig the knife in.
Yeah, well, all I can say is spring is officially here. Summer is about to start. We've got beautiful weather in Michigan. You've got the Americans have Monday off for my birthday, given by the president. So you're welcome. And great guests today. I am really looking forward to this.
Indeed. So bring him on in a few moments. Let's do some housekeeping here. So a couple things. One is that we have office hours tomorrow. So right here where you're tuning in, doesn't matter if you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch. Twitter got taken offline. That they're done with video, I guess, for a while. Boo. But thanks for tuning in. But yeah, tomorrow at noon Central Time, we will have office hours. Now, interestingly enough, this is like I do multiple office hours on Fridays. So I go to a coffee shop now that we can, and I'll just sit there at a coffee shop, and if anybody comes in and talks to me in person, that's great. So from 9 to 11, I'm doing office hours at a coffee shop here in Franklin, Tennessee, called
Is that for write-off purposes? Somebody talks to you, you get to write that off as a business expense then?
Well, that would be nice, huh? That's that was the world we were living in anymore. But those kind of things kind of went away with the tax reforms that were put in place a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why not having all these conferences hasn't really been that big of a deal, because the write-offs kind of don't really exist in the same way they did. So it's kind of like, all right. And if you're not in person, you wouldn't be able to do the other ones. So they haven't done virtual. Yeah, well, I'll get into that another time. But so office hours tomorrow, I'll be here for about 2 hours. We'll see how things go. If you have any questions on materials that we've created, any kind of things that are coming up that you have questions on in general about your career, about your guidance, you just want to talk about, that little thing on your kid's eyeball. And no, don't talk about that. No, I'm not interested. And I wouldn't be able to give good advice on that anyway. But any of that kind of stuff, let me know. I'm here for you. This is why we do these kind of things. It's kind of a rare opportunity. Don't get to do it all the time, but we try to do it at least once a month around here. So that is office hours. No registration required. Just come on in. And then after we all celebrate Jeff's birthday, Jeff and I are going to go do something even more interesting. We're pushing the envelope even further, and we are going to go head to head in some classic games. So don't miss that. Coming up Tuesday at 5 o'clock Central Time in the U.S. whatever that translates to elsewhere. But we got some classic games we're gonna try out. How we're gonna stream us both playing head to head is gonna be kind of interesting, but we're gonna do it anyway because
I think I figured it out. I figured it out, but we'll be testing ahead of time to make sure that it works before we just restream dead air.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll see, but yeah, so we'll see how this goes, and so look for that on Tuesday, June 2nd, and then we've got some other great stuff coming up too. So yeah, guests are always subject to change, but we have some great guests coming up in the month of June. So make sure you're subscribed down below and get that done. So, but for today, sometimes we have guests on that are just like, I've just done so much in their lives. It's really overly impressive, and it's like almost intimidating at times. But Ruben is a great guy. Somebody I've been pleased to know on the periphery for a while now, and I'm anxious to get to know him even better today. So you may know him for being the senior technologist at Nutanix, which, if I can, here, let me zoom out. I found this in my closet this morning. I just had to wear my my 2017 OG like conference shirt from Next and DC in 2017. So had to do that. Why not? Besides, it's really hot in my office today. So aside from that with Nutanix, you might also know him as the former CTO of Frame, which it was integrated into Nutanix, and we're maybe even have some time to talk a little bit about that too. But honestly, author, speaker, market guy, technologist,
all around great guy,
all around Superman. He's Microsoft MVP, Grid Community Advisor. He was in the Citrix CTP program when I first met him. I think that's where he was, I believe. And then vExpert as well. So he's been around. He's done some things, done a few things. And we're going to talk about that. I also want to highlight some things about things that are outside of those industry areas, being part of Project Reality, Virtual Reality Check, which is a very important thing that actually was a huge part of why I wrote Be a Citrix Hero, was because of VRC and kind of the things that were going on with that, and realizing that people needed to start having these conversations more about, okay, yeah, don't just assume that the vendor has your pre-tuned kind of a thing going on. So yeah, so VDI Like A Pro, TeamRGE, I'm just gonna. You can read below, like the full resume. You just go for it. I don't want to butcher it any more than I already am. So let's bring on Ruben. Ruben, I always screw up your last name every single time.
Well, it's very easy. It's a Dutch name, but it's tough to pronounce. But everyone knows Fanta, Coca-Cola, Sprite. And Sprite is close to Spruijt. So if you say Sprite, I will listen. If you just say, and if you just say Ruben, that's fine as well.
Okay, because is that little part with the tongue in the back of the mouth that I
always rolling R, Spruijt, R and I. It's tough.
Yeah, I'm worried about choking or something. I don't know.
But thanks for having me. Thrive in IT. Stories were about great people like you. I love it. Yeah,
I love this. So thanks for being on with us. And let's start with where you're from, where you're at. Because this is kind of the cool thing about our show is we have people from the US and Netherlands exclusively.
Not sure what it is. For some reason, there are a lot of Dutch folks
in
the community. And I noticed a chat with Mark Plattenberg. I think late last year, also with that topic. So I know why there are a lot of Dutch folks in the EUC community, but I will share more about that a little bit later. But yeah, back to basics. Indeed, a Dutch guy, Netherlands. That's how this country is called. Married, close to 24 years, 3 young adults, 21, 18, 15, 2 daughters and 1 boy. Yeah, love technology. Hobby is work. Work is hobby, and it's all aligned in end user computing. That's the simple summary of my resume, you could say.
Right. Yeah. All right. So why'd you send me all the big thing? You could just... I was kidding. Oh, that's awesome. So, so I take it you grew up in the Netherlands.
Yep, yeah, on the would say east side, close to the German border.
Okay.
And then when I was 16, we moved to the center of Netherlands. Well, Netherlands is not so big. I think north south is probably 4 hour drive, and east west is like maybe 2.5, 3 hours drive. So it's not so big. But yeah, center is where I live right now. Probably 45 minutes south of Amsterdam.
Okay. I need to get familiarized because, it's important.
Somewhere in time you'll be in the Netherlands, right? And then
yeah, I can't wait I was really hoping this summer would be the one. But
riding a bike and then having a barbecue and a beer.
Yeah.
Three Bs. That sounds like fun to me.
It's important. It's important. So
it's all sharing a beer under a windmill, wearing the wooden shoes.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We have so in Michigan, we have Holland, Michigan. And it's I guess one of the largest Dutch communities in the US. And so we just got done with tulip time and all that. So the wooden shoes come out. They have, so it's
I need to make up there for that as well, because New Holland has, there's several breweries up there that are just utterly fantastic. So if you're into beer, then that part of Michigan has some really good treats for you. I will say,
it's West Michigan especially. I mean, Grand Rapids over to the lakes. Yeah, it's exploding.
Yeah, randomly. So anyway, we could talk about beer until blue in the face. Probably talk about IT.
It's also good to talk about non-IT or non-work related things like
it's always
motorbike, barbecue, fitness, running, like whatever you do, non-IT or non-work related, right? So also good, also important, like super important.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning a little bit here. So you mentioned that you got into IT, or mentioned to me anyway, that you got into IT mostly because your dad, when you were around 10 or so years old. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So funny stories both. My dad is retired right now, but he was a sales guy in IT. So he always had like the shiny IT stuff with him to sell, and I could play around with Acorn and like the earlier versions of like PC days. So when I was 10 years old, that's how I rolled into IT, playing around with computers, repairing computers, exchanging games. I think that's a fair statement to call it like that. Sharing games through floppies and tapes and things like that. And over time, rolled into IT through like college, through university. Always was like the guy who has knowledge around IT stuff to repair stuff and have all kinds of buddies who were able to get like latest equipment and build PCs, build networks, help family and friends out. That's how I rolled into IT. And then I wasn't very good at school per se. I was more focused on the tech side and not so about the learning side at school, although the IT stuff was entertaining. So through that, I rolled into IT. I have a brother and a sister. My brother also worked in IT. Funny story is that I worked for a large system integrator for 12 and a half years, and my brother also worked in that company, and my dad worked for a competitor of that company. Oh. So we all had like wonderful Christmas dinners and things like that, talking about IT. Not
sure. So, your mother was just thrilled.
Yeah, exactly.
Dad, we're gonna crush you next week. Yeah,
exactly. No, it's also all fun, but that's how it worked. So my dad retired, and my brother, he changed roles. He worked for the Dutch police right now. So different story. But I'm still here in IT, and I really love it.
That's awesome. So so you worked for a long time. Did you like study to be part of that specifically, or was that something?
It's I think a master's degree in computer science, and then my dad started a sort of called like IT integrator, system integrator. In the early days of Novell and Win3.1 and DOS and like the early days. And I joined that startup for 6 years. Company grew to close to 15, 18 people. Then I left the company, which was not easy because if your dad is sort of a co-owner of the company and you start building that company from start, from a tech perspective, then leaving that company and also leaving sort of your dad behind, or that's how it feels. That was really a tough decision to make. But I did make that decision. It took me a while to make that decision. And then I joined a large system integrator in Netherlands. Started as consultant, then solution architect, CTO. I left that company, had a really great time. Joined a storage startup called Atlantis. Rick Dillinger was a buddy, a colleague of mine. Also guest on the show. I picked up that later. And then Atlantis got sold. I left Atlantis. Also learned. I had a good time. Also challenging times, but also a good time and learned a lot. Met a lot of new people and great people. And then joined Frame. Frame got acquired by Nutanix, and here we are.
Yeah, there we go. In fact, I'm going to put up on the chat. Let's see. So the episode with Rick was episode 45.
Yep, not so a long time ago. I remember. Yeah, it's a pretty small community. When you look at I wouldn't say key players. That's always a little bit strange to say, but there's I would say maybe 30 people or so in that like EUC community, and it's, I would say, really easy to enter that community. People are really helpful to build communities, to build new communities. That's my experience, and also helping others is the feedback I got from others. But yeah, Rick, Benny, Sean, Brian, yourself, like many folks in that community. So it's great learning and experience, and a lot of fun as well. Also, especially when we were allowed to travel, meet each other at events, and then hang out, bring our wives to the events and hang out afterwards. That's like a super highlight of multiple events on my side.
Yeah,
and also on my wife's side, Jacqueline. She's also she has fond memories of meeting like Benny's wife or Sean's wife or Brian, like-minded crazy guys. She really enjoyed and enjoying hanging out, also with the spouses of these crazy guys, and
Great war stories.
Yeah, exactly, and it's fun. Like people, the women, the spouse didn't know each other, and they like almost instantly can relate to each other. Like, hey, we're on the same page because we have like men who are similar and different, but similar, like crazy as well. Crazy about their job, really love what they do, which has a huge impact also in family life, which is a good topic to talk about as well.
Yeah, actually, that was something I wanted to bring up. Is just that balance point, and I think now's as good a time as any. Just because Ruben and I were talking prior to the show about this a little bit more, and how it's hard sometimes to find a balance between your family life and your professional life. And well, what we were talking about specifically was when we go into conferences and things like that, but it applies to just your everyday job life as well. As the priorities you set will be the priorities you set. And so there's that old adage that I keep saying all the time, that you won't rise to the occasion, you'll only rise to your level of preparedness. Well, if you're thinking and your mindset is like, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there or whatever, and you don't give any consideration to the family, well, that becomes your preparedness. That's what you're prepared for. So Ruben, talk to us a little bit about kind of along the lines of what we were talking about kind of setting some boundaries when it came to your family.
Yeah. I would start with, like, I'm really blessed, and I use that word for a reason. I'm really blessed with my wife, and I'm not sure if she's watching the live stream. Doesn't matter. But sometimes she's the brake on a car. So the car is moving fast. It's great. It's important to have a steering wheel, but also important to have a brake. So sometimes she brakes. Okay, this is like brake. you're going too fast. There's a corner. It's good to slow down a little bit. So that's one element of that's why I'm really blessed with her. And also she gives me a lot of freedom to do what I love, because if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And that applies to me for, I would say, maybe, I don't know, since I remember, like 20 years or so. It's always sort of my, I'm not sure if that's the right word, like my quote, like if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. And that's how I feel. And you get paid for it as well. And in IT in general, you get well paid. So yeah, it's really a blessing to have a very supportive family. And in my personal opinion, fundamental to be where I am right now and to be who I am right now. And everyone is different. Everyone has a different, I would say, family, spouse. Some of them don't have a family or spouse, which is really unfortunate. Like I'm blessed with that, and also a very supportive family. That being said, I did set. So when I joined PQR, the large system integrator in the Netherlands, that's where also the travel started. Writing white papers, doing presentations, starting with BriForum, all kinds of community events. And one of the things I did set from day one, and also communicated when I left PQR and joined Atlantis, joined Frame, joined Nutanix, like, hey, there is one rule when I travel. And it doesn't matter if it's .next or VMworld or Citrix Synergy or a user group. I will be home when my kids have their birthday. And I have 3 kids, so that's 3 birthdays a year. And my wife's birthday, well, that's a little bit more flexible, but still, it counts as well. You don't score bonus points when you're not at home. Right. But my two one of the 2 kids are both they have their birthday in May, and May is sort of high season in like Citrix Synergy and so on. So it's always finding these events and see how we can sort of make it happen. And I think twice I didn't go to an event because of rule number 1 applied. And I think that's my personal rule. Everyone will have its own rules, or maybe some have no rules. That's completely up to you. But that's my rule.
But I think there's something behind that. There's a certain level of it's life, folks. I mean, it's like, if your belief system is that your work is so scarce and so much in danger that you have to say yes to everything. Well, think about how you think about people like that. What do you think of people that just say yes to everything? Yeah,
that's tough.
And by the way,
that's also my I would say my my sort of weak spot is to say or I need to learn more to say no. That's called like that, the other way around. That's where I need to. That's what I'm learning every day, and that's why sort of the boundaries and rules are important. That's why I started with like I'm blessed with Jacqueline and see sometimes a break on the car, because she knows me for a long time. Like I'm married for 24 years, so I started early, and that's the reality. But that's important to find that right balance, and also to stay in shape, both physical and mental. For a long time, so it's more like a marathon you're running, not like a sprint. You go from side to side, and you enjoy the view while traveling, and that's what I experience even today, and hopefully also the next, I would say, 10 years, whatever the amount of tens is, whatever is being given.
Exactly. So Trent is watching from Canada, and he's asking, what about anniversaries?
Yeah, that's like a little bit more fluid. So it's always good to have a party, but like that's a little bit more fluent. Like you can say, hey, I'm married at October 30th. That event is on October 29th. Okay, let's organize the event on November 5th. Whatever it is. So that's sort of my sort of action on that. So on that side, it's more fluent. Some of them, so that's my answer on that one. Kids less fluent, especially when they're younger, they don't understand that you can also have a party on a different date. But that's the rule 1 applied. And also sometimes you miss big events. So I remember here in Netherlands when kids are like age 11, 12, they go from, in Holland it's called basisschool. I think not sure what's called in the US, but like from 12 to 13, you switch to schools. And you have you have a big party with with like a lot of people are gathering around at school. And sometimes I did miss twice, like 2 of these events. So you also do miss these type of events when you travel a lot and be active in the community and things like that. So that's part of the game. On the other side, you also get a lot of flexibility. Working from home is one example. You get a lot of flexibility on many sides, and that also has its advantages. So there's a pros and cons as everything.
Yeah, and I think from my standpoint, it's been, when I was able to start working from home, that opened up a lot more flexibility, especially with the kids being able to make more events. So VMworld is a great example for me, because one of my middle kid, my Owen, that's his birthday is on August 30, which typically falls right into VMworld. And it's been kind of back and forth, right? I'll miss a VMworld, I'll go to a VMworld. But because I've been able to be around for so many other things as well, that it makes it easier, I think, on both him and myself, being able to, have those experiences that if I'm working in an office, it's going to be a lot harder to get out of the office to go see sports, or he was actually into robotics for a while, things like that. So that's work from home for me, for me and I think for those of us, and especially in IT that can do it, once you get that balance down, it opens up a lot more opportunities, especially with family.
Yeah. Sometimes people call it like work-life balance. And I rather use like work-life integration, because finding the balance is the tough part. And if you can integrate it well and everyone is happy, or in a certain degree is happy, maybe 1 week more happier than the other week, but like overall happy, that's sort of, then sort of, I would say mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. I like that.
Well, I think too, like just the points of balance is one thing, but priority is the other thing that I think is really key. And I know this from coaching that I've received and coaching that I've given. It's that your focus determines your reality, and so that's really kind of true as far as that what you are presenting to the rest of the world. And so if you're saying the message to your employer that they are more important than your family, well, that's going to carry on to everything else too. And so for you saying to your employer, no, actually my family comes first, and there's just certain guidelines that are there. Now, what you want to avoid, and I want to give this caution to people, just, the coach is going to come out now, is being that person that is just making these random things up. If these are hard and fast rules, and I do think it's really important, then give those to your employer and let them know. Sort of like what Ruben is saying is like, no, we this event date conflicts with rule number 1. So let's do what we can to work around that if we can. And if that's not a possibility, if you're in like a position where, let's say you're just in a architect or engineer role, and they want to send you to a conference, and it's that sort of date, or just even something as simple as, hey, you know what? We got a rollout that's going on, and you have to be there for this. You hear this kind of language all the time. Well, come on. A lot of times that's not actually true, and sometimes you do need to actually have some negotiation there, especially when there's conflicting rules and things like that. Like you said about, like, could we do the birthday on Saturday? Would you be happier doing that?
And especially when they're getting older on my side, that's much easier conversation. Like they don't want to have a birthday on Tuesday. They want like a birthday on Saturday or Friday, and make it late until the late at night. Not on Tuesday, on Friday or Saturday. That makes more sense. So you have more flexibility when they're getting older. And mine is 21, 18, 15, as I mentioned. So it becomes easier. But like the same rule applied also like 20 years ago.
Exactly. But having that advance rules set aside, that's what's really important. Having that agreement, that's something that is important to you. And, I don't want to be the guy that's saying, well, you can always go find another job. That's not what this is about. This is really about your employer wanting to be in partnership with you. And you'll know that from the beginning of an employment relationship. And granted,
I think part of it too is the, probably the wrong word, but the self-control of you yourself enforcing that rule.
Yes.
And not, caving into the pressure, because that's it's one thing to say, I've got these rules. When push comes to shove, are you going to stand by those rules?
Yeah.
No,
it's that I don't have 10 rules, so that makes it easier. So this is I've one main rule. That's this rule. But I agree. The other challenge is, I would say, sort of often the identity is also attached to a lot of work, and that's what I learned over time. Hey, who is Ruben? And if Ruben equals this guy in IT, that's one side of who is Ruben. And that's what I also learned over time. That's the role of identity itself is not always hey, you need to work extreme hard and travel 90% of your time, things like that. And that's what I learned over time. And also what I learned in coaching is that say no more often. That's what I still am learning. And also what I learned is often to stand still, enjoy the success. And that's not always, hey, on a huge stage with 4,000 people, but it can also be, hey, kids have their birthday, or it's Friday evening, let's watch a movie together. And this was a great evening. That is also considered success. So stand still, enjoy that success, whatever the definition of success is also what I learned in coaching sessions. Why? Because I was always, and still, that's sort of my mode of operation, always looking forward. Hey, what's next? What's next? What's next? Next week? Next month? Next year? How can we do better from this community effort? How can we build a larger paper, or have a huge impact, or a bigger impact? That's always next. What is next? And that's sort of how I operate. And what I learned probably 10 years ago is to stand still, enjoy, celebrate that success, small or big, whatever it is. So sometimes maybe you've seen me using hashtag Mojito, the drink Mojito. That's sort of the trigger for me. Okay, celebrate success. And it could be hey, switching jobs, hashtag Mojito, or finish white paper, hashtag Mojito, or enjoying the nice barbecue with family, hashtag Mojito. Whatever that is, that's sort of my stand still and enjoy the small or big things in life. And that's what I learned over time. Also want to pass on to others to stand still, especially if you're fast moving and always looking at hey, what's next on the horizon. It's good to stand still. It helps finding keeping the right balance and the right work-life integration. That helps me.
And realizing that for the majority of our audience anyway, especially that we work in technologies that are allowing this at an unprecedented level. That we can actually have some true flexibility, but here's the danger with that is that if we don't have those boundaries set up, if we don't have those rules, then it can become overwhelming. Just because you can does not mean you should. Just because you can work 70 hours a week doesn't mean you necessarily need to or should do that. But you certainly could, especially with the flexibility we have nowadays. And so having those rules set aside early, and making those like Jeff's saying, make those actual rules, and not just
Ruben said make the rules. I said enforce the rules.
Yeah.
because that's me, right? I mean, I'll have a rule and then I won't enforce it, and okay, fine, I'll cave and give in. That's personal experience.
And everyone is different as well. So I don't need to sort of enforce that. Everyone is different. That's a good thing. Sure. I was nodding when you mentioned, DJ, about working 60, 70 hours a week. I was nodding about that because that's also sort of my Achilles heel. I really love being active on many sides. So maybe 70 hours is a little bit too crazy, but well, maybe not. I've seen weeks with that, and yeah. And the interesting thing, it doesn't cost money. It also gives energy. It doesn't cost energy. It also gives energy, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's also the challenge with that. And again, if your personal identity is attached to how many hours you work a week, that's not the right thing. And that's what I tried to mention earlier. That's what I mentioned earlier. That's what I tried to say earlier. Like, hey, that's a huge risk for me, but probably for others listening live or recording as well.
Yeah.
I think you also nailed it too when you said, like, for a lot of us, what we do is also a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, technically, maybe someone's working 70 hours a week, but if it's something that you love doing, and it's not a big stressor or anything, it's just something you love to do.
Exactly.
I
maybe someone else spend like 10 hours on a football field, practicing 3 times a week and drinking a beer on Saturday after the practice, spending like 10 hours a week doing sports. That's also a healthy thing, and sports is really a healthy thing. But that's everyone has. We all have the same amount of hours a day, and we need some sleep, and we have family time as well. So how do you spend your time? And I love like what I do, and that's also well attached to end user computing.
Yeah, that's the thing about it.
And it's a good thing, and not a bad thing at all. It's really a good thing. That's why who we are right now.
It's true. I mean, there's a lot of people that I encounter, and I know both of you have had these experiences as well, where you get people that are just tired, and that's kind of why we, put that on in our intro. It's like, people get tired because they're working on the wrong thing. They're not embracing their true passions. And, we went into this with Rick's episode, actually. We talk about kind of these zones of functioning and things like that. And that might be a good thing to dive into another one of these days when I'm more prepped to actually do it properly.
I think one of the quotes popped up right now is like the best basketballers also play basketball in free time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a basketball player, but I love IT, and that's what I also do in free time. So that's sort of my quote. If you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. You always play basketball because you love it.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife will sit there and say, like, okay, you're working doing this, now you're back in doing this, and it's, how do you stay in a computer? It's like, well, it's what we do. It's what I love to do.
Yeah, exactly. I could ask Jacqueline. She will have. Is it work or is it hobby? Well, you tell me.
What do you want me to say? Which one?
Yeah, but again, that can also be the tricky part, right? It can also be the danger part. That's what we highlighted a couple of times. So.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. We're gonna give Ruben a little bit of a break. We'll come back at the in about 2-3 minutes, and we'll talk about. Here, I'm just gonna put this on the screen. And we're going to talk about this.
All right.
So give Ruben a little bit of break, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. All right. All right. So I did want to tell you guys that this is kind of an early announcement, but it's okay, right? I think it's okay to make early announcements, and especially given that a lot of people will be watching the replay here. So we have a special going on. The link is in the description below. Actually, I'll put it up on here on the screen here in a minute, but maybe. No, I guess I won't. My bad. I thought I had this prepped, but I don't. So I will type it real quick and put it up. Boom. Failed. See how that works? Just doesn't like me today. Okay, sorry. So anyway, go to thrive-it.com/June 2021. And I was going to put this picture up on the screen too, and I kind of screwed that up as well. So that's what happens when you go live, folks. But I have a picture of my garage that is filled with a bunch of books because that's true. That's the way life is right now. I had ordered a massive amount of books because it was cheaper to have them all printed at once. I knew printing costs were going up, and so I ordered a bunch of books. So if you're here in the U.S., you can help us out in two different ways. So it's kind of like an exchange kind of thing. We have a little bit of a small little survey. It'll take about 2-3 minutes to fill out. It tells us more about you. It's anonymous. You don't have to give us any personal information about it, anything like that. But it helps us to get to know what kind of things will serve you better in what we're doing here and some other things as well. But as a thank you for that, you're also going to be able to help me by getting rid of some of these books. And so I'm actually giving a massive discount on the hardcover edition of Just Do This, which you see behind me here. And that is going to be for over 50% off. So kind of a big deal, kind of scary for me to even do something like that. But at the same time, I want to get this into more people's hands, and I definitely want to have more space in my garage to actually park my car without worrying about hitting these boxes, because that's literally what's happening right now. So anyway, you can help me out. Just go to thrive-it.com/June 2021 to access that special. So yeah, appreciate your time and your support on that. So let's talk about this.
Hold on. I want to say two things. One, the book, whether DJ and I were doing this or not, the book is is a perfect methodology. It's a easy read. He comes across great, and I think I've said this before. These are skills I wish I would have had, or a book I would have had 20 years ago when I was learning, because I had to go through and learn all this stuff the hard way. So do yourself a favor, or a friend or whatever, grab them a book and have them read it. Whether you've been in IT for a long time or not is irrelevant to this is good knowledge or a good review for you, for everybody. I had a great time reading it, and it really is worth its weight in gold.
I appreciate that.
The other thing that I am surprised DJ has not brought up is the episode count that Ruben is part of. Shame on you. Number 50. I can't think of a better guest for number 50 than this. And actually, that also goes with my birthday. So, hey, look at that. Hey. Couldn't have timed this any better.
Right? It's kind of crazy how that works out sometimes, where we just have these.
I'm going to be quiet now. Now we need to talk about this picture, because that is great.
I absolutely appreciate it, Jeff. Yeah, thanks. All right, so Ruben, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, good. It's what you're looking at is a hobby. Like, hobbies of mine are like it's called mountain biking, which is awkward in Netherlands. We don't have mountains, but like mountain biking, hills, we do have running, obstacle runs, travel, fitness. That's my list of hobbies. Barbecue as well. And late, I think August last year, well, we couldn't travel and still are not allowed to travel. So travel is no go here. So I thought, well, let's see if I can get my driver license to drive a motorbike in August last year. And that took, I think, 2.5 months, something like that. And then in October, I did buy a beautiful bike. This one here, exactly. And it's not me sitting on that bike, but this is an.
So that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, no.
Darn it! I wanted to hear the story behind that.
I thought you asked that question. No, maybe I spoiled the beans. Maybe I should say, hey, maybe it is me, maybe not. You never know, right? Well, no, it's not. It's not me. But so I bought this bike. It's a BMW R9T. It's a cafe racer. That's the style of the bike. It's a custom built bike. Built on a BMW R9T. And it's created in 2017 by the BMW dealer here in Netherlands for a large BMW racing event in Germany. So BMW Germany asked the BMW dealer here in Netherlands to build a custom bike. This is the bike indeed. This is not photoshopped or like 3D rendered. This is like the actual bike, of course, with professional photographer. So they built this bike for an event called GlamSec. So search for GlamSec 101. It's a sprint where cafe racers race. This is the story I told my wife after I bought the bike, by the way. So the bike itself is a fast bike, but it's also still a relaxed bike to ride. So cruising around is great. So they built this bike for the event. They spent a lot of money on that bike. They only drove 300 kilometers with that bike, which is I don't know, 100 something miles. Not a lot.
Oh,
And then they brought back the bike to the dealer, and someone bought it. Didn't drove it at all, just as a sort of show object. Sold it again. Then I found it and thought, well, this is way too expensive. No, not too bad. And I bought it, and now it's mine. So the other story in that GlamSec event, so this sprint event, GlamSec 101 is the event in Germany, that BMW, I would say, test driver in Nate Kern is his name. He flew over from US to Germany to ride this bike, and what I understand, his buddy died in an accident 2 weeks before that event, and that's why. And the buddy is also an motor racer, and like his style is this blue. You see this blue stripe on the gas tank, and that's the reason why it's also blue with like stripes and things like that on the bike.
I was going to
So
say, is that
I like
was that a
with the
reference to
story.
the Stars and Stripes of the U.S. or okay?
Yeah, it is. That's why like this blue sort of, what do you call it, bar, this blue label with the stars. That's a tribute to the body of Nate Kern. That's the story I've been told. So
Wow.
so that's the story I got. I like these type of stories to these type of equipment. It's not like a typical bike, and makes sense. I'm not a typical guy either, so I love it.
so what inspired the? I mean, why motorcycles specifically? What
Yeah.
stuff is like a lifelong.
So
thing, or like a-
when I was 17, 18, I also did drive motorbikes, although I wasn't allowed to drive motorbikes. But yeah, it's a long time ago, so probably I wouldn't get into trouble with that. So I always had the sort of inspiration and love to ride bikes, and we've talked about like work-life integration and family and rules and travel and like spending a lot of time. I always thought, well, yeah, riding a bike is great, but it's just me, myself, and I on that bike, no family with me. And if I travel a lot as well, like why should I buy a bike and be not at home again riding a bike? So for a long time, I thought, well, this is not the right time to ride a bike. Now with COVID, with much less travel, and also with the kids growing up, young adults, things changed. Some people would say, well, you're getting into 50, like Jeff is getting next week into 50. Probably it's related to age and man and like wearing a leather jacket, things like that. Whatever you want to call it, I don't care. I love the bike. I'm not 50 at all. 45 is my age, so I'm totally fine with that, and I don't care what others think about man, middle age, and bikes. I just love it. So.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with having that alone time. It's just because you travel a lot, that's not, I don't consider that alone time by any stretch. Sitting in a hotel or going out with, a crowd of people or going, that's not.
But from my family perspective, my wife perspective, that's a different angle, right? So I didn't feel alone at all, like hanging out with community peers always. So I never feel lonely at all, but it's more like, hey, where do you spend the time when you are at home? And like if I'm back at home and I spend like half a day on the bike running with buddies is great. Like it's really great. But then again, I'm not like with a family. So that's what I meant with sort of alone.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's sometimes you just need that separation. And, I've got the same thing. Not that I have a bike, but I go down to our camper about an hour south of us, just for the day. get away from being here. I can still do what I need to do, but it's just getting out of the house, especially with the past year. That has been invaluable to be able to just go somewhere else and not feel like, a complete shut-in.
Yep. So that's the story around the bike. And DJ, you also ride a bike, right? And,
Yep.
So when you're here in the Netherlands, and see, we can rent a bike for you and join. Or like Jeff, if you're around and you find time to get your driver's license, also good.
I'm gonna have,
I cannot. You saw the bike photo, right? So this bike is not designed to drive with multiple people. So it's just me on that bike, and that's it. No, it's a nice one.
I'll tell you what makes me jealous is Chris Matthew and his old Indian motorcycles. Oh, those are beautiful too. Love that stuff.
Yeah, and he has a lot of them as well. So it's a fun hobby, expensive hobby as well, but fun hobby for sure.
Truly can be.
That's why, like, what I understand, the owner of the bike, like the previous owner of the bike, had 3 of these bikes as well, and his wife told him, like, hey, you need to sell one of the bikes. I don't care which of them is it. Sell one of them, and then he sold this one, and I'm the lucky guy. So yeah,
nice, nice.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can come up with a picture of my bike. I just realized I don't know if I have any that are handy. I'll try and find one and see if I can put it up. But
it's also a nice community as well. Like a neighbor of mine, 2 guys from church, another buddy of mine. They also ride a bike. So yeah, if weather permits, which is like fingers crossed, not so often here in the Netherlands. But yeah, if weather permits, if it's dry and not too cold, we pick up the bike and ride for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah, good time. Different community, also fun.
Yeah, actually, my first introduction to, well, it goes back into my childhood as far as why I ride and why I ride the kind of bike I ride. It's that kind of connection with, people that are real to me, I guess is what I'll say. There's no pretense really when you're on something like a motorcycle. It's just like you can't really fake it. You're either on, driving or you're sliding. It's one of those 2 things. Right? So it's like you got to be prepped for both. But there's a realness to it. But there's also, I will say that one of the things I miss about it, I haven't been riding as much lately, and one of the things I miss about it is that alone time and that time to be alone with my thoughts. Because if I'm alone with my thoughts and I have something in front of me, I'll do that. If I'm at my computer, I'll be on the computer doing something, productive or not, doesn't matter. I'll be doing something.
For me, alone time is more in the forest. So walk the dog, like an hour and a half, an hour, watching a podcast, listening to a podcast, or sort of listening to this. These type of THRIVEcast is also a good alone time, or something like listen to just the birds and no podcast, or Thrive IT cast and things like that. It's also what I do a lot, especially without travel. It is a good time to wind down and get energy for new things.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of whatever self-care works for you. It's really important to find that time. Otherwise, you're always out of balance. You're not really, whatever that looks like. If it's being out in the wilderness, or being at a camper that still has Wi-Fi, like, okay, whatever it's got to be. For me, I like it's the same reason why I have liked going on like cruises, because it's like people can't contact me and I can't contact them. And at the first time I went on a cruise like that, I was really kind of freaked out. I was like, I had that, oh my gosh, what's going to happen while I'm gone? And then, a week later I come back and everybody's like, oh, hey, did you have a good time? That was it. The world kept spinning while I was away, it turns out. And
what?
Yeah, I know. I had some weird perceptions about the way the world worked, I guess.
It's good to hang out with buddies. I like last 2 years. I was invited to join a group of buddies to sail in Greece. So I'm not a captain. I don't have a boat, but we rent a boat, and with, I think first time was 7 people. Now with 13 people. So now we have 2 boats. We spent like a small week in Greece, and having a good time. Like talking about like non-work. These are not IT folks, but like talking about like challenging things, rewarding things, laughing, crying, drinking a beer or ouzo or whatever it is. Sometimes 2 as well. Having a good time, and that's also like it's a great time to have. And again, if you're able to do that, that's really a blessing. If you're allowed and capable to do that financially and time wise to do these type of things. So I really would encourage, I would say, everyone to find like peers where you can hang out, maybe for like a weekend or so. Doesn't need to cost a lot of money. Hang out with peers and spend time. Open yourself, open your heart, have a conversation. What bothers you? It's good for mental and also physical health. Is my personal experience.
No, absolutely. In fact, I will say that from a mental health standpoint, having making that a priority is just as important. And I'll get somewhat vulnerable here. That I'll say in the last 2-3 months, I've had to step down a few of the things I belong to and things like that, and there's a noticeable difference. Like when I stopped attending the mastermind that I was part of, not doing life with these 10 guys has had an impact on me, and not a positive one. And so I will say that I've come to realize that, it's more important than I maybe thought it was. When you look at things.
What I found interesting, very interesting, very like inspiring, that's a better word, is that when you hang out with 10 people, some of them I didn't know at all when I sort of entered that boat. And if you start very vulnerable and everyone opens up, I was really surprised that out of the 10 people, I would say eight of the men all has its challenges and has its like challenges from the past, and that could be like very intense, like could be like cancer, a couple of them, and a huge impact, or abuse, or like different like really challenging things, and that's still as part of sort of the backpack or the rucksack people are carrying. And if you hang out with each other for like a week or a small week, and everyone is open, or as open as they want to be, and having conversations about that and helping each other, that's really like a huge event for that particular year. And also this year in September we'll do it again. So really looking forward to that.
And just making that time. And it's easy to make excuses, but the honest truth is there's ways to make it happen, even with COVID, sort of things, like being on a Zoom call with people that are actually invested in each other is huge. So that's a big deal.
Everyone is fighting a battle they're not tweeting about, is something I remember.
That's quotable. I should write that down. Everyone's fighting a battle we're not tweeting about. It's very true. Very true. Especially in our world, where this is something my wife and I were noticing on a walk the other day, is that just to be completely random, my nephew apparently is participating in a game, online game tournament kind of thing, and they have this thing where they I guess they just stream their feet. I don't get it. That's really strange. But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, what it really comes down to is that we've gotten so much in building these kind of false personas that now we're just streaming. We're out of energy. Now we're just streaming our feet.
You know where that's from? It's Idiocracy, the movie, where the movie was the butt of somebody farting. And everybody in the audience just laughing. That's all it was. So yes, Idiocracy is now a documentary.
Oh, I think it has been for the last few years, my friend. But it is one of those things where it's like, if we're not if we're so focused on what we think people want to see, we're not really being honest with ourselves, and certainly not being honest out there. And so the danger with that is that if you don't have a appropriate outlet for that, an inappropriate outlet will present itself. And that's really the danger here. So that's why I like the idea about, just finding what resonates for you. If it's like for me, a group of guys that I'm really tight with, that we can, go worry about, or not worry about being judged. We just, go, find some bourbon and, not go crazy, but just enjoy the calm and be real with each other. I was telling Ruben, I actually had a friend of mine out recently, and as bad as my life has gotten at times, he's through the ringer, and it's not fair, is what it is. It's not fair to him to be going through all these things. But by us, being able to support each other and be real with each other, he left more energized and ready to take on things again. That's huge. I mean, you can't put a price on that.
And it's great to help others, and it's also rewarding for yourself, is my experience, if you can help others, if you're like a mentor to others.
Yeah.
So maybe you're listening to this maybe you're listening to this conversation and thought, well, maybe there's something missing and I looking for help, or I can use just contact. I would say me. I cannot talk for DJ or Jeff, but like if you need help, or if you want to just have a chat, whatever it is, totally fine. Just contact me. It's easy to find. There are not so many Ruben Spruijts on the planet, to be fair. I know two of them, myself and someone else, another Dutch guy who I met once. But so it's easy to find me. If you need help, feel free to contact me. Happy to set up a call. If you're in the Netherlands or close by, happy to meet. Or if we are allowed to travel and we meet at an event, just say hi and hey, have a chat. I think I'm an approachable guy, so it should be fine.
Yeah, that's actually something that's good to talk about too, because I think we're going to start seeing that, at least, well, in some of the circles that I run in outside of technology, we're starting to see events coming back. We're starting to see those pop up, and so I'm really encouraged to see that, because that personal, in-person thing is actually more important than I think we're realizing at times. I think some of these event organizers are realizing too that there's an energy that has nothing to do with the topics of the event. It's about the connections that are made in the hallways and at the bar, and it's important. It's super important. So I'm hoping that is something that happens. But it's been really amusing for me too to have people that are kind of shyly approaching, and I was like, it's okay, you can talk to me. It's cool. I'm just some dude.
Yeah, exactly.
The guy.
I heard a really good piece of news about the conferences and everything. When I was doing the Liquidware Unplugged yesterday, Jason Smith mentioned that HIMSS, if you're familiar with HIMSS, the big healthcare, that is happening this year.
Yep, correct.
So I figure if HIMSS is happening,
for the healthcare
and nurses all coming together,
kind of tells you what you need to know.
Yeah, exactly. So that was
it will happen. It's just first it will be hybrid. It will take some quarters before everyone is back to that mode, if everything works as it should be, and then it will be hybrid, and then hopefully end this year, early next year, we'll see the first IT events as well. And maybe we should organize our own events with focus on more the social element. Yeah. And look at Steve Greenberg, another community friend. We look at EUC Masters Retreat. Yep. A great example where there is an unconference. There's no agenda created at the start of the event, and you build the agenda with each other when you start the event. And that's IT stuff, non-IT stuff. It's a great event, and maybe we should have more of these events also globally, not only US but maybe Europe as well. And different type of events. So definitely. The Masters Retreat has been a treat. Yeah.
I think.
But Ruben, they do motorcycle riding.
Yep, I know.
Yeah, to say.
I
And
know,
he's showing up.
like
to the next one.
Dane, another buddy, Rick. Yeah, they both have their driver's license. I think Dane did bring his wife with him. Yeah, I think so. She was also driving. So yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, so yeah, hopefully next time, in all health, it will be possible to attend.
Like when it's sometimes harder with those kind of events, but at the same time, we start to see weddings coming back, then we're going to start seeing things like that too. So
it takes some time. We'll get there for sure. It's always end of the tunnel, so we'll get there.
And we've thought about doing a virtual event, hybrid event sort of thing, which may still be a thing. We may do like a Thrive IT Live kind of a event at some point. The cool thing about it is that I have access to the technology that people like Tony Robbins use for their virtual events, which makes it kind of cool. It's just a matter of, that still means there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of a little bit of a hindrance in that regards. But I think that there's a lot of potential here for virtual, for just in-person events to start being a thing again, where people are So
or even like maybe rent a cabin with like 10 guys.
Yeah.
Like what I mentioned earlier, like sailing with buddies as well, or people who became buddy over time. Like renting a place like Tahoe or wherever in US, and have a good time with each other without an agenda. And maybe 80% of the content, maybe 80% of the time we don't spend like IT related. It's just, and that's what I've done with like Benny and Sean and Tim and Brian, like a couple of times. It's really, really, really rewarding and fun to just hang out, bring wives with us, and spend time together. Good times.
And actually, that's just that right there, that's a big piece of how this got started with Jeff and I in the first place, was realizing that there was a level of personal connection that people wanted to see, like get behind the scenes of just the thing. And so Trent, I absolutely agree that Thrive IT Live at Masters Retreat, absolutely.
I'm going to maybe a suggestion for a session, like, hey, how to set up this event, could also be like how to set up, how does this setup look like from a tech perspective. It's also good learning experience for others.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, actually, the funny thing about
we chuckle because we've been talking about exactly that. So
it's kind of amusing to see the way ideas just kind of get validated. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And as far as like events and things like that too, I think there's a lot to be like to go beyond the usual and to really dig into life a little bit more. I think there's some potential there, and we're starting to see for the first time that that's being validated as well. That that was something that the companies already were staying away from, but we're starting to see more and more of that. People want to be people around people.
I remember Gabe Knuth session at Masters Retreat, Imposter Syndrome, talking about that, sharing like challenges around that. Gabe did share, I think Perrine did share, I did share, and then other people also like connected with that, like, hey, I relate to what you just said. Hey, how do you overcome that challenge? And we did share the sort of experience and end result. One of the attendees did step out of his comfort zone and got a new job because he did step out of his comfort zone at Masters Retreat. That's what I remember. So yeah, good to see different type of call it sessions or different type of topics on the agenda.
At Agile Disrupt last year, someone came up to me and kind of asked some questions around that, and I encouraged them, just start writing, just get what out there, and don't worry about if it's going to be something that's overly unique or whatever. And so he he finally did. And honestly, I wouldn't just share it just because it's like, oh, hey, yay. It's just like, it's genuinely, he wrote something that he thought a lot of people that already was covered, like other people were talking about it. But the perspective he gave and the structure he put to it was really good. And so it's just like one of those things where sometimes we don't think we have a unique voice, but we absolutely do.
Yeah.
We all have unique perspectives. We can't help but not. That's what makes it great. We may work in systems that kind of have, static and always the same kind of software, but we as people always have a different way we perceive that and the way we relate to it. And the more we can share that, the better.
That's how I rolled into actually the community probably 15 years ago. Like, okay, let's do a SmackDown, like AppVirtGURU SmackDown in the earlier days, and it was like a small white paper, became bigger. 15 years later, here we are, and a lot in between, of course. But so people sometimes ask, okay, how can I become what you are right now? Well. It's not an easy story, and it's a lot of hard work. You need to find the right balance and have a supportive family and be passionate about what you do. And then, things evolve. And same as community work. Like if you look at CTP or vExpert or MVP or NTC, some people have the ambition to be like an MVP, but that's not the end goal. It starts with, hey, let's share insights and let's share knowledge and hang out together and have a good time. And maybe you will get rewarded by like a CTP badge or an MVP badge or whatever the badge is, but that's not the starting point. That should not be like the goal. The goal is to share insights and to learn from each other. That's the goal. And that's it.
It's kind of funny how a lot of the stories, and you can be included in this as well. A lot of the those badges, those associations. Being in a situation where that has to be taken away can be a really great thing. I was just thinking about another friend we had on the show, Jenny Sheeran, worked so hard to get MVP, and then
she joined Microsoft, right?
Yeah. So we're really proud of her for not holding back and not worried about that, and just going for it. And so now she's going to be able to have a great impact beyond just the community. There at Microsoft. So sometimes
you can still contribute to the community. Absolutely. Maybe with different type of content, because you're internal and you have like a lot of like internal insights, so things you cannot share, but still you can still help people in the community. And that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
and you see that. Yeah, you still see that quite a bit. I mean, whether it's from Microsoft or VMware, they may be employees, but they're still, giving back, doing things for the community. There's always going to be things you can't bring up or talk about, but there's a lot that you can.
Yeah. And also there are also things you cannot do, like what I did in the past with like SmackDowns. I did write five like papers and books, not alone with community peers. Yeah, like if you do a SmackDown comparing vendor A, B, C, and D, and right now you are part of a vendor, then you cannot do these type of community efforts, unfortunately. So that's the reality when you join the dark side or when you join the vendor side. But then you can also do other things. Maybe you can set up a new community because the vendor itself doesn't have a community, or maybe the community is not as alive as it could be. That's another like entry level where you can also contribute to community effort. Different type of contribution though, but still valuable.
That brings up something I wanted to actually talk a little bit about too, which is Project Virtual Reality Check. Because I just realized that I don't think I've ever asked the question how in the world that actually came into being.
And it's a good story.
Talking about
good, a great guy, Jeroen van der Kamp in English, community friend. I think we were on a plane to event probably 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And we're talking about like IT stuff, and we're talking about like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we have like real data and insights in the EUC space, for instance, to optimize Windows XP and Windows 7 for VDI, or like how does Zen Server compares to Hyper-V or ESX from a hypervisor perspective. Like these type of thoughts we already had. Like we talked about, like there is no real data at that point in time.
Yep.
And think, hey, why not just start a small project, a small project, and find it out ourselves? And that was a huge mistake, because it was not a small project, but it was really rewarding and fun to do. And that's how like the community VRC started. On the other side, like it's great to have an idea and to spend time with it, but without tools and methodology, benchmarking is doomed to fail.
Yep.
So that's also how I would say Login VSI with Mark Plattenberg and Hank and other colleagues on the VSI side, how they started as an intern. Jeroen with an idea to build software like benchmarking software called Login VSI. A couple of people, interns and other folks to build the software. So VSI was the software to run benchmarks, and Project VRC, Project Virtual Reality Check, was sort of the called marketing vehicle. It was not marketing vehicle, but like a community vehicle to run all kinds of tests and things like that. And both Login consultants, so Jeroen worked at Login Consultants and I worked at PQR. We both were competitors of each other, competing in the same space, consulting companies. So it was funny to say, like, hey, we're two CTOs for two competing companies working together at a large community project. And at the end, we wrote, I think, 10 white papers or so with like antivirus, app virtualization comparison, like the performance impact of that, XP to Win 7, Win 7, Win 8, Win client, Win server, multi-user, single user. Different hardware, different CPUs, like a lot of different testing, a lot of effort, a lot of time, and it was always a team effort. So like Sven Huisman and Ryan and a lot of other people were sort of added to that team with their own skills and their own expertise to contribute to that team. People who didn't like to be on stage, were really like the engine to make the testing done, to finish the testing and to build a testing platform. While Jeroen and I, we spent a lot of time on stage to share the results, and that's how Project VRC started. Project VRC became a virtual reality check. Jeroen did sell his company, did leave. We pivoted to VDI Like A Pro in that time frame as well. When Project VRC started, like as I mentioned, we had 10 white papers. We also collected a lot of email addresses of people who just downloaded the white paper. We didn't ask money for it. We just collected the email address. And then over time, we thought, well, why not just ask our peers in the EUC community questions around their infrastructure? And that's how the survey as part of virtual reality check started as well, like eight years ago, or maybe 9 years ago, and still is very relevant today. A couple of months ago, we finished the VDI Like A Pro State of the Union, and the history is connected to virtual reality check. That's where we started with also the survey content. So that's, I would say, the sort of summary of Project Virtual Reality Check, VRC, VDI Like A Pro. VDI Like A Pro is survey right now, and Project VRC in the early days was benchmarking, a lot of benchmarking, and survey content as well.
And for those that aren't familiar, because that's always a possibility. I mean, I never want to make assumptions about who's watching and who's not, but the reality is that some of the impacts, especially some of those later white papers, just the performance things that were I don't know if there was just like denial on the part of vendors that they just weren't willing to say anything about this, or it was a laziness of not wanting to find out. But there were some things, like some of the antivirus things, some of the .NET.
Or like optimization on the ESX side, which has a huge impact. And we did find, I don't have the details top of my head, but I know for sure at the ESX side, I think was memory optimization related, or memory related for sure, where we did improve like scalability, density of the platform by, I think, 20%.
It was huge. Yeah, it was like
and I would say none of them in these days didn't know or didn't share that insight to the outside world. So But you can also imagine if you compare like ESX, Zen Server, and Hyper-V, there's always one winner and two losers, right? So there one is winning, one that has the best number, and the other not so great. So they're always like a battle. Like, hey, what can you share? From a legal perspective, also interesting from ULA perspective, different story.
Exactly.
So yeah, what I also learned from I think Nally at Microsoft, she always said, if you always make sure that there are no surprises from a vendor perspective. So always inform vendors about results, even if they don't like the results, doesn't matter. Inform the vendors like, hey, this is what we did. This is the methodology. That's what I learned from Benny Tritch. This is the tools we use. These are the outcomes. We have 2 lab environments. We can reproduce the outcome. So we're not talking bullshit. That's why it's not a small project, but like it's a huge effort, because it is a huge effort. And at the end, they maybe are not happy with the results, but they couldn't say, well, these results are invalid. Well, Dane Young would say, prove it. What's wrong with that result? We can reproduce it. We have 2 labs. We use this methodology. This is the context. So yeah, this is what we will share, and that's what we did big time. So we stir up the pot multiple times in the VRC days for sure. Well, and then Jeroen is like really like Jeroen is like Red Bull, and I'm like, okay, I'm the relaxed guy. So Jeroen is bouncing around on the stage big time. Jeff, you know Jeroen as well, and I'm like the opposite. But what I really like is that it really blend well together. We spend a lot of time with VRC, but also in, I think we call it Workspace 2020 and 2025 presentations as well, where we had like a sort of CTO forward-looking, like what's happening in the EUC space. That was also big fun as well. And that has nothing to do with VRC, but has nothing to do with like, hey, we spent time together, 2 competitors, one Red Bull guy and one like relaxed guy working together. We had a really, really good time for sure.
Well, and it kind of set up the whole, there's not one solution for everything, but getting tied in, and kind of having a framework that actually gives the best results, within reason. But it's like the hypervisor thing. Like everybody's like, oh, VMware is the best, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, they're good, but there's other things where you might want to consider. There might be high performance scenarios where maybe it's not the best, and so
and also performance is one element. It's not the only element to choose a solution, right?
Exactly, and that's why I think, well, and not to get over the technical on this thing, but I think that's where people like Nutanix coming in and saying, well, we can just work with everybody until we find something better, and then we'll do that. And there's a value there too of saying, what's going to be best for that kind of you don't know what the end result is going to be, and so just being more flexible, having a wider stance actually usually works out pretty well. So it's kind of fun like that. So
actually, I was thinking about it when I was talking about like VRC and listening to what you said. So there are a lot of other angles as well. So I mentioned SmackDown, and like Benny and Sean, so Benny Tritch and Sean Bass, they in the early days were also sort of not really benchmarking, like platform benchmarking like VRC is doing, but they were benchmarking user experience with different remoting protocols. And that's where Sean and Benny did start. I also entered in that space together with Sean and Benny. That's how TeamRGE, Remote Graphics Expert, started. When you look at SoftGridGuru is like Softricity, AppV, Ron Oglesby, what was his company name? Doesn't matter. He had a forum called SoftGridGuru in the days of forums, and that was transformed to AppVirtGURU together with Jurien and Rory and myself. We run that forum. So there are a lot of sort of angles with different community bodies like AppVirtGURU, TeamRGE, VDI Like A Pro. It's fun to see a lot of community friends getting around and helping each other.
Yeah. Cheers. Well, so tell us a little bit about Well, maybe just how Frame got into the picture here, and then kind of how it progressed from there.
Yeah, from a community perspective, that's like it's a different story. So you could say change gears back to sort of business life a little bit. So like the story is like I worked at PQR, large system integrator. I was ready for something new. I joined a storage startup called Atlantis, like with Andy Wood and Jim Moyle and Rick and other peers. And Atlantis got sold. Like you have two hockey sticks. One of them is down, one of them is up. This was like down. Oh, sorry, this one was down. Learned some lessons. Got a request to join Frame. And Frame, for people who don't know what Frame is like born as a cloud service with the focus to run like every application, every software in a browser. So end user computing, virtual applications and desktops is the broker is the service we operate, and the workload machines to run apps and desktops are in public cloud or on-prem. Really born as a cloud service to make like application and desktop delivery really simple. Every vendor will say we have a simple to use solution, but the starting point is, okay, let's make something simple as the starting point. And HTML5 focused, so browser-based, own remoting protocol, a lot of integrations to one-click integration with Google Drive or Dropbox or like many other things. End result is still, okay, how can we make it simple to deliver apps and desktops for like ISVs, small, medium enterprises, large companies. That's how Frame started 8 years ago. I joined, probably 4 years ago. Frame got acquired. You have two hockey sticks. One of them is down. That's Atlantis. The other hockey stick is Frame. Hockey stick up. Got acquired by Nutanix. I think $160 million. So yeah, that's hockey stick up.
Yeah.
And now part of Nutanix, like family. And Nutanix, 11-year young company. End user computing is always an important workload for Nutanix. Nutanix is hyper-converged infrastructure with, in the early days, appliances, nowadays software and subscription services running on-premises or running in public clouds. Yeah. And like EUC is a workload on that platform. Like Frame is like the workload machines is a workload on that platform as well. And besides a very strong relationship with Citrix and also with VMware from a platform perspective. So yeah, that's like the sort of summary of how I entered into Frame and how I entered into the Nutanix family.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's kind of like, it's funny how paths just kind of go. Maybe not what you expected, but and
also again connected to community, because Nicola, the founder of Frame, we met at NVIDIA's GTC event. So Sean and Benny and myself, we are presenting at NVIDIA GTC. Could be 2015, 2014, 2016. We rented a large house close to the convention center because it was cheaper to rent a house with the three of us than renting 3 hotel rooms at the same time. So we had a great time. I know Dennis Gundarev joining and others were joining. Barbecue time, and that's the NVIDIA GTC event. And at the event, Nicola came to, I think, all three of us. Like, hey, I have something new. We just announced Frame with GPU instances running apps in a browser. Hey, take a look at this. We built our own remoting protocol, and as I mentioned earlier, remoting protocol comparison is part of like TeamRGE, right. Remote graphics experts. Like, hey, and that's how I got into contact with Nicola. He was following me on the community side for a while, and he just reached out to me, and we stay in touch. And long story short, some years later, company evolved. They were expanding, and they were looking for a guy like me, and that's how I entered into the company.
I'm going to tell you something about Frame that, you know, when I first heard about Frame, and it's like, all right, another entrant. And I don't care who says the protocol wars are dead, but that Frame protocol is the most amazing thing I've seen. It just graphic wise, what it can do, 3D rendering and display and manipulation. That I was blown out of the water by how well it worked, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and also for Frame, for us, the browser is like the main vehicle to run apps and desktops. While for others, the browser is like the backup plan, like Plan B. You get the best experience when you have like a client or agent or application is installed. And for us, the browser is like the main vehicle to run apps and desktops. The browser also have its downsides. Not everything is rosy and rainbows and roses with the browser. But then you can also do other smart things. You can also create your own sort of browser engine, or use a browser engine like Chromium, and build your own app built on that platform. So you can still leverage the HTML5 platform. And that's what the Frame app is doing. So it's a browser engine. It unlocks certain things the browser cannot do, like smart card support or very specific USB support, which is sort of locked by the browser often from a security perspective. But still, have that browser first mindset and technology.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like sort of like the hypervisor wars, if you want to call it that. Is it the best solution for everybody? Well, that would be foolish to say something like that. But at the same time, it's like pushing those boundaries forward. As like, okay, what's your easiest path to success here, and things like that, and being willing to not just accept what's right in front of you as being the only way, just moving forward. And I will say that's something that I've always loved about Frame, and especially about Nutanix, is that willingness to say, oh well, you know what, actually let's question that a little bit and see if there's another way we can do that.
And also say no. Like we all have consulting background, so Frame isn't like the silver bullet to solve all challenges.
Right.
Neither is VMware, neither is Microsoft, neither is Citrix, neither like none. There's no like single solution to solve all, and that applies to Frame as well, right? So my consulting background then comes handy. Like, hey, okay, let's start with like what are the requirements, and will this fit from a technology perspective? And if it doesn't fit, or if it doesn't fit well enough, then you need to say no, and that happens. And that's also good from a roadmap perspective to come back with like feedback to the engineering team, like, hey, this is where we are lacking, or this is something where we should improve, or maybe we should not improve and just stay and focus on what we do. Keep it simple instead of adding 1,001 bells and whistles to a platform. Yeah, it's also a strength, right?
Yeah, and I think from the customer perspective as well is the ability to, if you come back and say, you know what, our product, it just doesn't look like it's going to be a good fit. That builds that. I mean, maybe you miss out on a sale, but the next time something like that comes around, they're going to talk to you again because you gave them an honest answer, straightforward. You didn't try to fit the square peg in the round hole, and it's just craziness that people still continue to do those things.
Yep. Let's see if I can find some info. People maybe might want like, hey, how can I sort of test Frame? There are two ways, and if you want to, like, I can. That there are two ways. One of them is trial. It's a 30-day trial. If you're a Nutanix technology champion or an Inside Track member, I can help you with like a full year access to Frame for free. 5 users, not for resale, things like that. That's done here. I just share you a link.
Okay, so I'll get this link. I was in the background here. I was asking Ruben if there's some way we could actually share this, if it's okay.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So let's do that. I'm going to put it in our official chat here.
And there's another way. It's called Test Drive. So in the 30-day trial, you need to bring your own infrastructure. But there's also Test Drive. You can sign up. It's, I think, 12 hours. You don't need to sign up for infrastructure. It's all part of the Test Drive. And that's this link called like Test Drive. Take Frame for a spin. It's just up and running in a matter of like 15 minutes. I can provide a special test drive code. I cannot share it here, but if you want to have access to GPUs during that test drive, or if you want to spend more time with the test drive and not go into the trial route, I can provide like a test drive code. I would say just reach out to me and I can help you with that as well.
Outstanding. And
But again, if you're an entity or an part of the inside track, in my opinion, it should be very easy for community members to access cloud services. It is, in my opinion, BS if it's really tough to get access to like a trial to trial out a solution. Even if it's like, and if you're like part of the community, it should be very easy to get like free access for a year to spend time with like a DaaS platform. And that's why I mentioned it earlier. If you want to spend time, two options: trial and test drive are ready to use.
Yeah, and that's the hard part with cloud services. Anything in the cloud is, if the vendor doesn't provide some sort of environment to test and play with, you're then using your own, which just can cost tons of money. Yeah, over the long run.
That's the test drive thing. So it doesn't cost you. It costs you like zero money.
Yeah,
because that's part of the test drive. We will pay for that. The downside is limited in time because it costs us money. The other approach is the trial, which will cost you money if you use Azure, Amazon, or Google, or if you use Nutanix HV. Even like Community Edition works well with Frame. You can use your equipment at home, use CE, run in Nutanix HV, and connect Frame to that, and that's where the trial also kicks in. So different options, and options are always good to have. So.
Yeah, so we'll get those links up. I put them in the chat. For some reason, we're having some issue with. Well, believe it or not, folks. Speaking of things running in a browser, we run our entire show in a web browser. We got multiple cameras and things going up. This is all happening within a web browser. So that's the kind of things that are actually possible in a web browser. It's not just watching YouTube. It's producing.
Well, look at like Stadia or Project xCloud or like game streaming services in general. Mm-hmm. If you think about it from a technology perspective, actually Frame is in a similar sort of from a tech perspective, similar story, right? We use browser. We have a high-end graphics remote protocol. We access VMs running with GPUs or no GPUs, depending on the workload, and we run apps instead of games. But from a technical perspective, it's similar storyline.
I had to laugh because I mentioned the virtual event software that I've access to. We had a call on that on Tuesday, and they were mentioning somebody was saying like how many total Zoom rooms would you be able to support? And the answer was like 230 or something like that. Now each of those rooms would have about 1,000 people in it. To give you a perspective about what that software is doing, it's actually aggregating all of those Zoom rooms. And so they're like 250. How would you run that? And it's like, well, we partnered with a company that has some, virtual PC, and all like, all right, now we're in my world. Let me tell you all about how to do that.
Yeah, well, I always say like if you can run games at 60 or 90 frames per second, or 120 frames per second, or like 60 frames per second, or can run apps like Inventor or Photoshop or PTC in a browser.
My first demo, my first being shown was actually, I think it was right after you were brought on, Ruben. I was talking to a gentleman over in San Francisco, and he was demoing just kind of showing me around. And he showed me what he showed me, not only just, this is what we can do, but, and I don't want to mention company names, but he showed me like how a company that is very big on manipulating photos and how hard it was with the amount of data that needs to get sent from places up to them to be manipulated and then sent. It was all the stuff, and they've moved it all into in-house so that they can just upload the data once and they can manipulate it all online, and it just makes it quicker, easier. And it was just amazing how he was showing me exactly what they were doing and the manipulation. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, one, it's great stuff. But if you get a chance to play with it with the GPU and manipulating those, heavy graphical program software, that's where it really shines through. And
especially when the data set is large, or you have like a lot of like point clouds, like with like 100,000 files. If the app and data are running close to each other, and the app requires GPUs, which is easy or easier to do in cloud, then the thumbs up. The best user experience when app and data are close to each other, and more and more data is stored in cloud. So if you can run these type of apps or legacy apps close to where the data is, I would say welcome to my world, or actually welcome to our world, because you both are in that same space as well. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
well,
that's good stuff.
Well, there it goes. Almost out. What's next? I always like asking that question, especially for visionary people. Like, what's next for Ruben?
Yeah, next for Ruben is that's a good question. Also, like what I mentioned earlier, is stand still is also a good thing, and that's happening right now in COVID. It feels actually a bit it's uncomfortable. Not travel. It's like different mode, and the benefit of that is that you can think out. The benefit is that you can just stand still and think, like, hey, what is indeed next? And next could be like, hey, next community thing, or next community project, or not IT related, or like, hey, what can I do within Nutanix as a next big thing? It could be product related, can be like a customer or advisory board related, can be like different things. So that's sort of that's on my plate. Cannot share too much about that. That's next for me. Different things on the plate. In my job, sometimes I describe my job as bento box. Like Japanese food, bento box with all kinds of different food in one box. That is my role. Different elements in the box, and different elements are on that horizon plate. Customer related, community related, product related, but also like from a personal perspective as well. Like, hey, finding the right balance when you cannot travel. It has a huge impact, if you ask me personally, also mental wise. I have my challenging times, even like these days, because like life is different, and we are still like I feel really grateful and blessed. So it's hard to stay grumpy or be grumpy, but sometimes I am grumpy. Like, hey, wow, I am working at home for like a year plus in my own home office. Well, two things: I'm healthy, I can work, I have work, and I have an office. Actually, that's three things. So nothing to complain. But sometimes, I feel grumpy about that situation. And again, I'm blessed, I'm healthy, I have a job, I have a home, and things like that. So, yeah. So to come back to the question, it's good to stand still, to think out, sometimes loud, have a conversation with my wife, or walk the dog, and sort of conversation with myself. Although that sounds awkward. But like, hey, what is next? And that's like the bento box. There's not one big thing on that list, but many things on my list. Community related, maybe an EUC master retreat in Netherlands, maybe a different sailing trip with buddies, maybe like project XYZ, community wise, or product XYZ, business wise, or customer engagement or community engagement business wise, or things like that is all on the plate, to be fair.
Yeah. I like that master's retreat in Netherlands idea. It's something that needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
not this year. I want to make sure that we are sort of in normal mode. We should be able to hug and have a beer and have like high fives and travel, things like that. So probably next year, and then see if we can team up with Steve. He has a lot of knowledge in organizing these things, and other peers as well. So.
Yeah.
And, but something like that, more than happy to help with organizing that.
All right, we've got a consensus that Netherlands is
Canada's in.
Canada's in, yeah. Trenton is in. That's plus one. And also, sometimes you need to start small, right? Like if you focus on, okay, let's bring 100 people in. Wow, maybe start with 10 or 5. Like it's not about the number per se.
Yeah,
if you ask me,
you look at some of the successful. I mean, I think the biggest kind of grassroots success is E2E. Mm-hmm. I mean, and yes, that's kind of more of a formal conference now. But really, that's, that was completely grassroots. Alex.
BriForum is it called? I know.
Yes, BriForum, exactly. I know, us old school people. It's, it started out with just a few people from the community in Europe meeting together. And then, it just grew. So, and now it's a big thing. And, so yeah, everything, start small, make your mistakes and grow it.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
So, Ruben, tell us about those little circles in your background there.
Circles in background. Oh, this one here. It's sound absorbing stuff. That's what it is.
I mean, I know, but I suspect people might be like, okay, what's
that? Yeah. IKEA, sound absorbing. That's how it is. Affordable and it works.
Did you have
see, I have other panels as well in my room here, more expensive, like foam panels. But these are also nice.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of working from home, like spending a lot of, actually quite some money on equipment, like lights, cameras, multiple screens, standing desk. Elgato is doing a great job.
Yes. I've spent more money on this office than I had ever planned to during COVID. Just never thought I would be buying lights to do a YouTube stream, things like that.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy, but
thanks, DJ. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
and like if you ask me, like if you look from an employer perspective, like if people travel less, which if you ask me is one of the outcomes of this whole thing, people will travel for sure, but less overall. So why not spend a segment of that travel budget into like professional equipment, whatever it is, like if it's an like professional chair, like $600, adjustable desk, $1,000, two lights, $300, camera, $200, like it stacks up. So why not spend a segment of that travel budget into equipment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I believe that is happening. I see it on the Nutanix side happening a bit, I would say, still like reasonable money, but yeah. Why not increase that while office space is decreasing and like office becomes like the new sort of hangout. I go to the office to hang out with peers, not to get work done, but to like discuss and to get energy and to get new ideas, which is also work, quote air quote work. And if I really want to get work done, I will stay at home, lock the door, and get work done. That's often my mode of operation.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's something where it's like sometimes we think of like, our presence in the office. We never thought about our appearance and how we present ourselves, and it's kind of funny that now that we're working at home and the sort of thing, and it's looking like that's going to stick around. It is funny how we've started to change our mentality about that sort of thing, where we're not necessarily worried about suit and tie or anything like that, but at the same time we're very much aware of the vibe we give off. I don't know if you guys have noticed, like the virtual background thing is almost dead. I was like, nobody's even bothering anymore with the fake virtual backgrounds. We're all just like, this is me. But a lot of them are like us, where we've just said, okay, well, if I just do a little bit of things like here and there, just like a better webcam, some lights, a good microphone, all of a sudden I'm finding that I stand out amongst my peers in that sort of thing. In that regards, is that I become more of a presence in the room just by those small little things. It's really interesting that has been a shift. Like normally it would be something completely else, I stand out in a conference room or whatever. Now it's, these things are working. It's
sometimes amazing. I'm surprised or sometimes annoyed a little bit. Like if people, like if like the webcam is like this, and like a shitty microphone, like, okay, it doesn't cost a lot of money to sort of be more equipped, or just like make sure that the webcam is on the right level, and things like that. So
yeah, what amazes me is that the people that you would expect to have good equipment or at least decent, those are the ones that have like the worst.
Yeah.
It's like that just doesn't work.
It's been our time to shine in a lot of different ways, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The light shines down on us all right now.
Also, we talked about like Office. I wrote down an interesting quote a couple of weeks ago. Like, please stop referring to returning to the office as returning to work. We've been at work the whole time.
Yes.
So
Wow.
I found it also an interesting one. So please stop referring to returning to the office as returning to work. We've been at work the whole time. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and that's a mentality thing as well, because that's how there are people out there that view it that way. All right, you've had your year so off from doing real work or whatever.
Yeah,
now you got to return.
That's a disturbing thought.
Yes,
what that's going to mean.
Thanks,
if an employer has it, well, if an employer has that mindset, what's that going to mean for the employee? You know,
time to leave is what it means to me.
Yeah,
if that is the mindset, if Nutanix is not in that
everybody
way,
makes mistakes and says things in jest or whatever, but if that's the mindset, it's time to start looking elsewhere, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that big bank that announced they were bringing back all their workers, and there was an internal revolt that they stomped down by turning off the message boards. You know, so yeah, I'm not going to say, but I think
that happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's one of those things that, right now, I don't think is a good idea to force those that do not want to come back, right? I mean, into the office. I mean, there's still worries for people, and to force people to come back for no other reason than to fill up real estate. That's
like, for me, I would want to be back in an office. I mean, that's just because that's just my personality type. I actually do work better around people. That's why I've, these kind of things actually, Jeff, you and I were talking about this on our comeback episode, that, this is something that refreshes our energy. Like, it's like the time is, I mean, we've been at this for, an hour and 55 minutes, gents. This ain't normal.
But the difference.
What you mentioned, DJ, applies to me as well. Like, certain tasks, I don't want to do these tasks at home. Like spending time with peers, like colleagues, community friends, competitors. I don't care. Is really like energizing, and that's what I really miss right now. And that applies to events as well. Like hanging out with each other, drink a beer or two, is also energizing. You get new ideas. That's how all the community things I described. Also, all these community things. Great. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's know thyself and know thy community is what it kind of sounds like to me. It's like, you'd think that, a bunch of tech people would be, well, just like talking in our basements and going on the internet and saying things that are not right,
Oh no, we've left that behind. We leave that to everybody else now.
Actually,
the keyboard warriors.
But it's true. It's like you need to know yourself and know your boundaries and where you fit in that regards, as far as like not fitting in socially, but fitting in from a standpoint of what you are better at. And a lot of people, we've said this before, that think they're an introvert, and so because they're an introvert, they can't do these things. Well, it's actually not true. Actually, most people that are really good on stage are actually introverts. Most people don't know that, but it's absolutely true. Is like there's a correlation. I've studied a lot of this, and you find out that people like that just are if they're really good on stage, odds are good that they're gonna want to be alone backstage. They're not going to be the best encounter if you don't give them some time to recharge, that sort of thing. Yep. So knowing yourself, but knowing the community and what they want out of involvement too. And it was a surprise to me when I first started really being involved in the community that we were people that really wanted to be physically close to each other. And I was very late in the game as far as that went. And I guess I just didn't realize that it was even a possibility that a bunch of geeks like me would want to get together and just be real with each other and start throwing things together. And the amount of collaboration and whatnot that's happened out of just being willing to do that has been amazing. And so, I'm really.
Well, look at this platform you both of you created is also a good example like that. Yeah.
Well, we get really great ideas like having Masters Retreat in the Netherlands.
We should just repeat, and then make it happen, right?
Yep.
It's how this works.
Funny story. My wife is texting me right now. I was looking at it like, "Hey, I'm listening for 2 hours to all three of you guys, and it's really entertaining." So, and that's a good thing. So.
That's good.
And also a little bit disturbing because I did share in the beginning about the motorbike and this drag race thing, right? So we'll see what happens tonight when I'm closing this session and this conversation. But we'll see.
Does your wife do what mine does occasionally and just ask you, when are you leaving again? When's your next trip?
She stopped asking that like 9 months ago or so, 10 months ago.
Well, he does have one teenager in the house, so that might be, there might be that question.
I got 3, or almost 3. I got 2 and 1 coming very shortly into teenage. He's already started the transition, unfortunately.
Yeah, no way back.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I got 3 boys, so I don't know.
What age, DJ?
Oh, I don't have any kids.
I thought you had 3 kids. I thought you had 3 kids.
No, that's me.
Sorry. You're still in practice mode, DJ, right?
DJ can't admit to kids that he may have after. Now I've got a 19-year-old, a 16-year-old, and 11-year-old. So
yeah,
it's interesting. It's different than when I, definitely different when I grew up, and I know that's obvious, but it's even the mentalities of the various things. Yeah, it's so different.
Kind of crazy. Yeah. Cool. Well, tell you what, gents.
2 hours already.
Now it's like now my wife's saying, "Hey." Yeah. So
she's listening as well, or
no, she's like just texting me. She didn't listen to this. Yeah, she didn't listen to me. I can say whatever I want. She'll never know. Yeah, that's probably not true. But
you're just asking for trouble now.
We kind of are. Yeah, indeed. So,
sorry, Karina. I'll go downstairs in a couple of minutes. All good. All good here.
What is that? I'm coming. Come on. Yeah, right.
No.
Awesome. Well, before we do this, I want to do. Let's see. Trent says, "Awesome show. Thanks, Ruben." And I agree.
Thanks, Trent.
Been a lot of fun. But anyway, any final thoughts for us, Ruben?
Yeah, good question. I knew you should ask that question, so I wrote down a nice quote. So let's see if I can find it one. I wrote down, "Everyone is a rock star in one context, and just another member of audience in another. So stay humble, be nice, be happy, and cheer for others when they are having their moment." That's my sort of final thoughts. And maybe we should close it with like, if you're grateful, it's hard to be grumpy. But I mentioned that one earlier. So if you're grumpy, don't stay grumpy for too long, because there are many small or maybe big things to be grateful for.
Indeed. It's not worth it. So, Ruben, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Ruben.
Back to the green room, and
thanks for having me. And see you next year in Netherlands. Massive.
Indeed. Make it happen, Captain. All right. Thanks, Ruben.
See you.
All right, Jeff, final thoughts from you.
Final thoughts? No real final thoughts, as usual, until something jumps in my head, and then But no, I just want to thank Ruben. Ruben is for as long as I've known him, been one of the nicest people in the community. It's always great to talk to him, and I think of great insights. I really hope this episode gets viewed a lot, because there's a lot of good information on, balance or integration for life, just in general. So,
Indeed. All right. Yeah, good stuff. Well, Jeff, we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks for
See you, everybody.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks again for tuning in. And again, yeah, it's just great to be part of community and great to have these conversations. And we want these to keep coming. And so if you have any ideas for additional conversations we can have, content, anything like that, feel free to let us know. And I do actually want to encourage you once again to go ahead and take that survey and get that access to that special that I have going on. So it's thrive-it.com/June 2021. thrive-it.com/June 2021. Great to see you once again, and we'll be back tomorrow for office hours. Don't miss that. Thank you for being part of that, and hopefully see you very, very soon. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another edition of THRIVEcast. We truly hope you've enjoyed the experience and have learned a lot from it. Now, what we'd want from you next is to join us at thrive-it.com, where you can get subscribed to our multiple channels, get subscribed to our newsletter, and do more to get yourself to where you want to be in your career and your life in information technology. If there's anything we can do to help you, please give us an email at support@thrive-it.com. We'll see you next time.